Let's have a look at primary data. So in terms of gathering primary data, there's a few things to consider. Firstly, primary data is collected by a researcher from first-hand sources. Now remember, the difference between data and information: data is raw, information is once the raw data has been processed. In research design, we specify which research questions must be answered, how, as well as when the data will be gathered, how will the data be analyzed. So in terms of gathering primary data, there's a few things to consider. For example, exploratory research allows the research to conduct research in a less structured way, includes focus groups, online focus groups, and executive interviews. So the most popular technique for gathering primary data, in which a researcher interacts with people to obtain facts, opinions, and attitudes, like conducting an interview. The idea is, because it's a one-to-many or one-to-one type research, mostly conducted face-to-face, we can ask follow-up questions and a lot of open-ended questions to get deeper responses. And also with the follow-up questions to better understand not only what people think, but why do they think the way they do? Or why do they like a particular object or product ahead of others?
So how could the French Café find out what the customers want? Let us introduce a few types of qualitative research. They could invite a group of customers in for a focus group interview, a discussion with the customers about their experiences, thoughts and feelings about the French Café. This could provide them with important clues of what the customers like and what they don't like. They could also choose to perform in-depth interviews on a one-on-one basis rather than in groups. They could also observe how customers behave when visiting the café. Interpreting facial expressions, actions, and body language in general might also uncover elements of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. We call these types of research qualitative research.
Advantages and disadvantages of primary data. Well, first, the advantages. With primary data collection, the massive advantage is the fact that you can ask questions or get answers for questions which are very specific. If you're looking at a report made by somebody else previously, they may have asked questions similar to the ones you wanted to know the answers for, but they may not have asked the question that you really needed the answer for. Because you're conducting primary research yourself, or even paying a company to do it for you, you can ask very specific questions. And you also know the data is going to be very current, in the sense the data that you collect is from now, or as recently as you conducted it. Also, because of this, you know the source of the data. You know where the data is coming from, and thereby you can trust it more. This also means the secrecy can be maintained as well, in the sense, if you don't want your competition to know where you've collected your data from, you can keep that a secret. It's a primary data source.
Now let us list the characteristics of qualitative data. Qualitative data is based on asking open-ended questions, such as what, how, when, and so on, so that the respondents can express themselves using their own words. Qualitative data cannot be quantified or counted. No two answers or observations are exactly the same, which is why they can't be counted. Qualitative research can be used to uncover people's motivations, feelings, attitudes, preferences, and behaviors, exactly as they choose to express them. The benefits of qualitative data are that it can uncover detailed, in-depth information from each respondent, and that it is often relatively low cost to carry out. However, the disadvantages are that only a few respondents are used and that they are unlikely to be representative of the entire target group. Results can be difficult to interpret making the results subjective. Now let us introduce a few types of quantitative research. The French Café could design a questionnaire with a set of predefined answers for the respondents to choose between. They could, for example, ask the respondents to indicate to what extent they are satisfied or dissatisfied with the service they receive in the café. They could also carry out an experiment where they test customers' reaction to the launch of a new cake and measure how many new cakes are sold. And they could carry out a structured observation, for example, counting how many customers stop to look at the menu outside the café and how many of those choose to enter the café or to walk away. Similarly, they could use Google Analytics to observe online behavior, for example by measuring interactions with the Book a Table feature on their website. So let us summarize the characteristics of quantitative data. Quantitative data can be counted and/or measured. It's quantifiable. It is based on asking closed-ended questions, for example by providing predefined answer options in a questionnaire. The benefits of quantitative data are that it can be representative of the target group, since a larger number of respondents can be covered, and that it is objective. However, the disadvantages are that it doesn't uncover in-depth motivations, detailed reasons, or underlying feelings and attitudes. And some types of quantitative research can be fairly costly to carry out.
There are some pretty big disadvantages too, mainly expensive. Think about it. Every time you have to ask a person or ask a group of people a series of questions, that's expensive. It's going to take time, which is the second part. Quality declines if interviews are lengthy, no matter how good your questions are or how well you've designed the process. The people you're interviewing are going to be like, oh, look, I can give you 10 minutes of my time. If you want an hour of my time, pay me money for it, which once again makes it quite expensive, but the overall quality declines the longer it goes for. Let's say the research topic that you're looking into has a lot of open-ended exploratory questions to really dive deep into the topic and get a good understanding of it. But the people you're interviewing, they're time poor. They have other things to do as well. So it could be really hard to get participants interested in putting their hand up to say, yes, I am willing to give you my data in regards to whatever the interview is. Think of it this way. When was the last time you filled out a feedback form? Even if it was just as simple as, out of 5, how would you rate the service?
So what is best? Should the French Café conduct qualitative or quantitative research? As marketers, we would advise them to consider what type of information is important for them to make decisions upon. Do they want in-depth and detailed insights into what some of the customers think and feel? Or is it more important to them to have a high volume of representative and measurable data? We would also advise them to consider their available resources, both in time, money, and the skills required. No two cases are the same, but if time, money, and skills allow, a combination of qualitative and quantitative research is often a good solution.